Well, if you can't beat the Big Ten on the football field, just change the tax laws.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
My name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jacob Goins, the host of Locked On Hoosiers. And welcome into a Big Ten crossover where we look across the Big Ten Conference and talk about news that is relevant to not only our schools, but the Big Ten itself, as we are talking QB debate with the NFL draft. Drew Allar is trending in the right direction. I think Fernando Mendoza is getting a little scrutiny, a little too much criticism. Isn't he the number one overall pick? Indiana is courting five-star prospects while Penn State doesn't have any commits in the 2027 class still. We'll get to that later on. We're going to start here with the SEC, with SEC country trying to change tax laws to gain an advantage here. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work. Now that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights and this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Hey, friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Be a part of the discussion. Jacob, this is crazy. The state of Mississippi is updating its tax laws to make NIL funds tax-free. So Mississippi State, Ole Miss, is going to be, that's a huge benefit for recruiting. You get to keep all your NIL funds if you play football in the state of Mississippi. And I imagine other SEC schools are going to try to push their state legislatures to do the same.
If they haven't already, right? If they haven't already made that change. I mean, what if the state of, and I don't know off the top of my head, but state of Texas or state of Alabama or Georgia or whatever the case may
Texas,
be.
literally, because it's the biggest state in the United States. I mean, oh my goodness.
And I know they have, and I know Florida, I believe Florida doesn't have income tax laws to begin with. So maybe that's a difference. But yeah, in the state of Mississippi, we've heard, Zach, about the SEC changing the rules of college football to benefit themselves and try to win games and championships. We've got laws changing now, brother.
Politics.
Because that's what everything needs is to politicians to make it better, right? We're not getting political here, but you are talking the law and basically an amendment being made in the state of Mississippi for NIL revenue made by a college football player to not be taxed, for them to not pay like every other American has to do across the country. And it never fails to amaze me, I guess, on the SEC doing whatever it takes to be competitive. And we're talking about Ole Miss, where Lane Kiffin no longer coaches, and Mississippi State, who I could tell you who the head coach is, but a lot of people can't, right? Changing a law to be competitive in college football. And that's what I want people to understand here is we're not worried about Ole Miss or Mississippi State. It's the idea that they're going to the extremes here of, oh, I'm sorry, you're a hardworking nurse in a hospital that works 80 hours a week. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to pay money on that paycheck
School
that we
teachers.
pay you. Yeah. Nurses, doctors, teachers, bus drivers.
This is strictly just for to gain an advantage on the football field, on the basketball court, anything to try to close the gap in the competitive landscape, right?
How wild is that? And
this is literally to benefit Ole Miss and Mississippi State. It literally is.
They're not shying away from it either. That's what's so crazy. And look, I want to make this very clear. We're picking on the SEC because it always happens to be that conference that does things like this. I don't support this in any state across the country. I don't care if Pennsylvania starts to do it, Indiana starts to do it.
I would like them to start doing that. I'm for fewer taxes here if we're going to get political, right?
I mean, I could see that, but I did read somewhere that the state of Mississippi is planning on doing this for all people and all citizens in like a decade. But they went ahead and said, well, we got to get ahead of this for athletes because we need Ole Miss to win football games. We need them to get recruits. We need the SEC to be good. And it's just baffling to me that we continue to see these things happening. And it says more about where we are in college athletics than it does anything else, Seyko. It's wild. This is where we are. And I think it'll work I mean, we haven't even talked about that. The idea itself is blasphemy, but it's a great move. It's genius. If your politicians will do it, it's freaking genius because yes, it's a recruiting tool. You're down to Mississippi, you're down to Ole Miss or South Carolina, or whatever the case may be, or Ole Miss or, Iowa.
It's a difference of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. It's a genius move, Zach. It really is.
It's just different down in SEC country. It just means more. Truly, where politicians will go out of will go out of their way to make it more beneficial for recruiting, and that's transfer portal, everything to benefit. Again, this is not the last stop. You are going to see other programs, and I don't know that Ole Miss and Mississippi State tried to leverage. It's the fact that a Mississippi State legislator would go out of its way to say, hey, let's try to give the schools that are in our state a competitive advantage. What's stopping Texas from doing that if it's not done already? Again, Florida has no state income tax, right? So there's different. I'm not a tax law expert, but this is literally framed as NIL leverage for the big schools in the state of Mississippi. So my point above all else is the fact that you're not going to see Pennsylvania. Maybe you do, but I doubt it. You're not going to see Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, the political branches there go out of their way, the state governments there, to try to benefit Penn State, Michigan and Michigan State, the University of Indiana University, right? You're not going to see that. Whereas the Mississippi State legislator is going out of its way to help those big schools.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And again, I'm not getting into state wars and politics and things, but this is directly impacting college football. And again, I can't get over the idea that most of the time when stuff like this happens, it's trying to be buried in a bunch of other stuff, or it's trying to be hidden, or it's trying to be spun in a certain way. Nope. They're like, hey, straightforward. We want Ole Miss and Mississippi State to benefit from this so their players don't have to pay taxes on the NIL money that they make. And I'm sure the kids are happy. I'm sure the recruits are happy. And whatever, man, it never ceases to amaze me what the SEC and its members will do to try and stay competitive in college football. It's desperation is what it is. The Big Ten has won 3 in a row. Teams in the South are scared to death, and they're worried about being left behind, so they'll do whatever it takes to stay above water.
Well, that's just it. Chess, not checkers here.
Yeah.
And if you can find other ways to have competitive advantages, I say so be it. That's why there needs to be collective intervention across the board. I don't know what that looks like ultimately. Is that an antitrust from the United States government? That's a completely different conversation, what it ultimately leads to, right? Making college players professionals rather than amateurs still, because that's the line that we continue to toe, is that you can do whatever you want since you're an amateur.
Yep.
But then it's all these discrepancies that keep popping up. So good for the state of Mississippi, because nothing's stopping them. And like we agree, it's a genius idea, but it's strictly about trying to find that advantage so that Mississippi State and Ole Miss football and basketball and whatever else can be better than the other SEC schools will follow. I think this affects the Big Ten more so than it does. It just lays the groundwork for other SEC teams to try to do the same.
Yep. And baseball for the SEC, this will impact that landscape too, because they are at the top of college baseball. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, this will impact every sport that the Mississippi schools have.
Let's bring it back locally here. Indiana. Whoa, Curt Cignetti trending in the right direction for 5-star prospects. Penn State doesn't have a commitment in the class of 2027, but what Penn State can do that Indiana has done to turn that recruiting wave around. That is all coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And recently, even with last night's game, we don't have a ton of major moments for Indiana that have moved the game forward for Indiana to win big ball games. But I just go back throughout this year and talk about Lamar Wilkerson, who will go down as one of the best scorers we've ever seen here at Indiana. He's had 40 pieces galore galore all over the place. And when he's on the floor, he is something that displays a moment that moves the game forward. It's these types of moments and his performances that remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. The extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit and the I never quit. We put that same passion into every model at Mazda. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Penn State can literally take a page out of Indiana's playbook because Indiana recruiting is now probably, what, Jacob, you would agree, the best that it's been in recent memory and long-term memory? Yeah, ever. Let's go all the way back since Indiana football was founded. And Curt Cignetti and Indiana football are not only the solid prospects, your consensus 4 stars, guys that are don't necessarily make the cut for Ohio State and Texas, but now starting to be in the mix for 5 stars, the elite of the elite. And Penn State, well, they don't have a commitment. It's a lot of wait and see. Hey, everything that I've heard and read as far as recruiting intel goes, Penn State is not in a bad spot. It's just you got to be patient here. It's going to take time. But man, I got to imagine that Penn State fans, and myself included, just kind of a little jealous or can't help but notice, hey, Indiana's in such a great spot recruiting when this wasn't the case a couple of years ago when Cignetti started. But that's what I'm trying to get at, is winning fixes everything. They went from getting 3 stars to, hey, we're the leaders in the transfer portal, to 5 stars as well.
Yeah. And, the change in the drastic uptick is pretty drastic. Remarkable. It is. But yeah, I mean, winning cures all. I like to say winning cures most. Is the phrase that I use most of the time. And look, in this instance, winning has cured your money problems. Winning has cured your recruiting problems. Winning has cured your facility problems. Winning has cured the transfer portal problem. Winning has cured a lot for Indiana in the last couple of years. So that's my advice, Zach, is just win games, right? Just go win a national championship in year 2 under Matt Campbell, and everything will work itself out. I can personally attest to that from the Indiana perspective. But look, man, recruiting is at an all-time high, and by no means is Indiana the number 1 class in the nation and getting every 5-star possible, because
but you're competitive.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not how college football works anymore. Look at Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. They're getting good players still, but they're not getting all of them anymore. They're going to other schools. They're going to other places. It's starting to, I don't know if balance itself out, but it's at least spread out a little bit more, right? Rather than a cluster of 3 or 4 schools, now we got a cluster of like 10 schools that are a part of this thing. And Penn State has been there over the past several years. They just couldn't do anything with it. That's why James Franklin got fired. That's why there's a new coach. And Penn State has every chance to work their way right back into the fold. But for Indiana, yeah, I mean, you're getting top 10 quarterbacks in the country. You've got the nation's best wide receivers and corners who want to come visit at Indiana. Indiana's in the running for the nation's number 1 defensive lineman, Jalen Brewster, who's hard committed to Texas Tech right now, paying him a boatload of money, and Indiana's still in the running to make this thing happen. So you start talking about 5-star defensive linemen and major offensive linemen like we saw in the transfer portal that you brought in to help you win national championships. I mean, Indiana is so high right now on everything going on. And here's what I've been talking about on my show is the tools in the tool belt right now looks like the Batman belt that Batman wears. It's got all the cool little gadgets on it. That's what Curt Cignetti has to use at his disposal right now. And you start comparing that to some of our friends in the Big Ten, a la Penn State, and it's just not comparable. I think Campbell can get there in Happy Valley, but yeah, it's going to take some time, unfortunately, for Penn State fans. But here's the problem, and you know this. Fans don't want to be patient. They don't want to wait. They want to win right now. So I don't know what the formula is other than just win right now for Matt Campbell.
And here's where I think some confusion will happen. Well, what are the chances that Penn State's going to win a national title in year 2? It doesn't have to be a national title. It'd be nice. Right. It'd be great. It doesn't need to be that, though.
At a place like Penn State, you're right. It doesn't have to be.
What it needs to be is win some of the games you're not supposed to. and just continue to get situated. Okay.
Yeah.
Curt Cignetti, even if he didn't win a national championship this year, it accelerated everything. But I imagine that Indiana still, hey, Curt Cignetti doesn't really have, if I'm not mistaken, okay, he doesn't really have a lot of roots. He didn't have a lot of roots in Indiana to begin with. Okay. You're a coach at James Madison. You bounced around as an assistant. You took James Madison to new heights. You were an assistant at other programs.
Yep.
And then you finally settled in at a school that he wasn't, it's not like he was a coordinator there originally. He wasn't an assistant coach in Bloomington for a long time, or he grew up and was born and raised in Indiana. He had to anchor down and begin to lay the groundwork. Now, Matt Campbell, a little bit of a different circumstance because his family does have roots in and around the state of Pennsylvania. So he knows the area, but was he actively recruiting Pennsylvania year after year after year? No, he was a Midwest guy, but right on the border of Pennsylvania in Ohio, there's that connection. So for Matt Campbell, it's just about establishing yourself. It's just about building those connections. You do not need to win a national title to land 5 stars and highly coveted 4 stars. Okay, that's not what we're saying here. But winning does cure all. You win that game against Michigan and make a statement when not a lot of people are expecting you to. Okay, maybe things change when we get to that game. But most people right now are going to say they're either from the Penn State side, it's, well, I would like to think we're going to beat Michigan, but I don't know. And you ask anybody from Michigan, no chance. There's no chance Penn State and Matt Campbell beat Michigan in Ann Arbor. But that's the conversation. And you win that game decisively, conversation completely changes.
Well, it's funny because I brought up Penn State's schedule, or I pulled it up so I could take a look at it when you said win games that you're not supposed to. And I know you and I have briefly discussed the idea that our schedules are not the toughest in the world in Bloomington and Happy Valley at times.
That'll change in a year. That'll change in due time. So anyone can complain about it. Now, Penn State's got an easy schedule. Look at 2028. So what goes around comes around.
In 26, I mean, again, Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Wisconsin, Northwestern. You're not going to get any love. You're not going to get any street cred. There's not going to be any recruiting bumps and hits and flips because you win any of those games. You win that home game against USC, now you're talking. You go on the road, like you said, to Michigan and get it done.
Michigan's the bigger one, in my opinion.
Now we're really, okay, even being on the road, because I assume that USC game at Beaver Stadium will be a huge recruiting weekend. Could that be the whiteout game? I think it would have to be.
I think it has to do more so with proximity and just the rivalry of it. I know Penn State's unrivaled, but there's more history. There is more history with Penn State and Michigan, more overlap in recruiting. Yes, Penn State has some connections now when it comes to California and everything, but nothing to the degree of, hey, Michigan and Penn State have been in the Big Ten for a while. There's just history. There's recruiting history. There's there's literal game history where Penn State's played USC how many times? 5 or 6? It's not that many times. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, again, Purdue, at Washington, I mean, maybe, but I love Washington, but it doesn't carry the oomph and the weight, right? Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland, like none of those other games. I think you've got two. You have 2 legitimate chances to remind people who Penn State is and give yourself a chance to get back in the swing of things recruiting wise. And so that's what Indiana did, right? Indiana to a very drastic measure, but you started winning games and you started blowing people out and you started getting put on national TV, and Penn State will be back in that moment and then beat people like Michigan or Ohio State, or at least compete. And then Penn State beats those guys. Yeah, you're going to be back in recruiting battles, but Indiana, man, the momentum is heavy and recruits are just lining up to come to campus and talk with Curt Cignetti, Mike Shanahan, Bryant Haynes, and the fact that the coaching staff is still tight knit together, that's a big deal for the Hoosiers in recruiting, high school, and the transfer portal.
It's a prove it thing. Prove it. Penn State was right on kind of teetering on the edge of breaking through in recruiting, where it was elite player after elite player. And then they followed it up with a loss to Ohio State year after year after year after year after year after year. So build it and they will come, as Indiana has proven here. So part of that player who helped lead Indiana to the upper echelon Fernando Mendoza, consensus #1 overall draft pick. The Las Vegas Raiders, they can't mess this up. And Drew Allar, some people say that he's an automatic bust, but he's trending to make it back into the first round. We're going to debate the two quarterbacks in the NFL draft. Who's going to have the better career, right? It's obviously Mendoza. That's coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, man, that's bucket list type of stuff. And the hard part, though, is always getting the tickets to be there for that. The long queues, the prices jumping at checkout, surprise fees, it's just not all that fun, right? But the Game Time app gives fans the advantage with the constant innovation that they have. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are already included in the price that you see, so what you see is what you pay. So if you want to go check out the Big Ten tournament, heck, maybe you want to make a trip to Columbus this weekend and watch Indiana take on Ohio State, or if the Hoosiers do make it, you can go to the NCAA tournament by using the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON. That's locked on for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my #1 pick this week for the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. And you know the great things about 5 Hour Energy. Gives you the energy that you're looking for, the kind of a boost that you need, but zero sugar. Plus, they come up with all these new crazy flavors. And normally, I'm pretty basic. I'm a strawberry banana type of guy, the smoothie type of flavor, right? And fruit's not typically my thing, but I've got to be honest, I tried the peach mango this week, and it was awesome. It was really, really good. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, and I think you're going to like it too. It's got that right flavor of the peaches, plus it's got a little tropical hint in there with the mango as well. It's just a smooth, rounded finish. You get the flavor, you get the energy, and the boost that you're looking for. So for right now, it's peach mango for your boy with 5 Hour Energy. You can find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com, or you can find them on Amazon.
I think Fernando Mendoza is getting extra criticism, undue criticism, honestly. Well, he didn't look that great in the first half of the season. They just went 16-0 and won a national title. Sorry that he didn't look fantastic in his new offense in week 3, but whatever, to each their own when it comes to scouting draft prospects. For Drew Allar, it's all mixed. It's everything, every opinion, the range of opinions is so wide. He is awful, he's going to get a front office fired, to, hey, this guy's the diamond in the rough, you take a chance on him, you give him the right coaching, he can lead you to a Super Bowl and be a really capable quarterback. He has traits that can't be taught. And, you know, here's the thing, though. There are elements of each argument for Drew that are true. I don't think it's one or the other that he's going to be this. Well, I guess it is, actually. You're either a bust or you're a superstar or you're somewhere in the middle. But there are things that you can criticize, and he can still be a good quarterback at the end of the day. Just because he was bad in some college games. I bring up Josh Allen, man. Josh Allen struggled against Mountain West schools in 5 years of college. And we're picking on Drew because he struggled against top 5 defenses. #1 defenses from Michigan and Ohio State. Yeah. And Notre Dame had a top 3 defense.
With an offense that wasn't all that good to begin with. Like,
it wasn't balanced.
I don't think the scheme in the system was built for him. I think it was built around the running game, which was obviously Penn State is what they do.
You had a two-headed monster at running back, but why couldn't you have both? Why couldn't you air the football out and then run the football? Why did it have to be one or the other?
Indiana did it.
Exactly.
Indiana ran the football with a two-headed monster of Roman Hemby and Kalen Black and let Fernando Mendoza sling it around when he wanted to. And most of the time, Fernando didn't even play in the fourth quarter. It was the other Mendoza that played, Alberto, his younger brother, who's about to be the starter at Georgia Tech, and we wish him nothing but the best. And so, look, when it comes to Drew Allar, I think the sky's the limit, but it's a risk to take him in the NFL draft. That's why he won't be a first-rounder.
Depending where. If you take him in the first round, that's a risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking him in the first several rounds could be a risk. But if you find yourself in the fourth, fifth, or sixth round, and it's like, let's take a chance.
Ooh, no chance he makes it past. I think outside of the top 40. There, especially with this is a quarterback driven league, quarterback needy teams. Anthony Richardson was selected 4th overall by the Indianapolis Colts. Zach Wilson was taken number 2 overall by the New York Jets. I am not trying to compare Drew Allar to Richardson and Wilson because I would like to think that he's better. Other people would say differently, that he's just another iteration of them.
Yeah.
But if those guys were taken in the top 5, then Drew Allar is absolutely a first-round quarterback.
But I think those guys had more hype going into the draft. I mean, nobody in a loaded room, in a loaded cycle, and next year's will be even worse. So get ready for that. I just don't hear people talking about Drew Allar, and I like him. I do. I think he's a leader.
Funny,
I think
my feed is all Drew.
Really? Well, I mean, being the Penn State guy, I would imagine. But yeah, I haven't heard that. But I think it's not a lateral comparison. But look at Drake May, who just played in the Super Bowl for the New England Patriots. Like, he was a very pocket passer pro style, but wasn't the hottest commodity coming out of college. And he found the right system, found the right coach, and they just played for a Super Bowl. I know they came up short, but he was a sophomore in the NFL and made it to the big game. So I think Drew Allar could get to that point. But in comparison to somebody like Fernando Mendoza, I mean, Fernando was clearly ready halfway through last year to go play for an NFL team with the right coach and the right system. And I think a lot of that is such a big factor that we don't talk about here, which is why I'm so excited for Fernando to be 1-1, but I am worried about him going to the Raiders because you go to
Tom Brady's there now. Hey, Tom Brady's there now. That there's more direction. If it was the Jets, I'd say, because I've said that about Drew. If the Jets take a flyer on Drew, I'm no chance. God love you. No chance.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot. It really is. You're just shooting in the dark and hoping that it works out. But Fernando's ready, man. I mean, he was making, NFL level throws every Saturday last year in the Cream and Crimson, throws that nobody else in the country was making. That's why he won the Heisman Trophy. That's why the Hoosiers are national champions. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to Drew Allar to put him up against Fernando Mendoza, but I do think Allar has everything to be a good NFL quarterback. I don't see him being an MVP. I don't see him being a Super Bowl champ, but I do see him being somebody you could rely on. There's nothing wrong with being a professional backup in the NFL, Zach Seyko. You can make millions of dollars being a backup quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that.
See, I think he can be a starter. I think if he goes to the right, because Aaron Rodgers did it, right? And he might end up in Pittsburgh too, where he sits behind Aaron Rodgers. The biggest difference is, Allar can make the same kinds of throws that Fernando Mendoza can. And I will argue that Drew Allar has the better arm talent, but what separates you is just a winning instinct. You just have to be able to win football games. Okay. Whether that's just a gut thing or it's mental, because I don't think Drew Allar's dumb. He can read a defense. His decision making for the most part is really good. He had consequential interception, but that's the clutch factor. Okay. If you want to say Drew Allar's not clutch, he's not, but he had low interception rate. He was very good at protecting the football, except in those crunch time moments. Whereas Fernando Mendoza, you knew you were on the right side of the game with him leading the game-winning drive. With Drew, you knew you were on the wrong side of it. If you can take that, Drew athletically is very well the best QB prospect in this class. Arm talent, all those things, the throws that he can make, how far he can make them, but decision making and just having the guts to lead a game winning drive. Well, wins matter more than pretty throws. So
you're right.
Take Fernando Mendoza. I'm not trying to advocate Drew for being the number 1 overall QB, but him being taken in the first round would not shock me, and it's something I'm fully expecting.
Guess we'll have to see. Fernando, though, he is lined up to be 1-1 for Indiana, which is we were talking recruiting before. Talk about a recruiting tool. Indiana has become a quarterback destination with Curtis Rourke from a year ago. Now Fernando Mendoza. I expect Josh Hoover to be right up there in that conversation too. So looking at Indiana possibly turning into QBU. You never know. If things keep going the way they're going, man, it'll be hard to deny it.
That's going to do it for this Big Ten crossover here as Locked On Nittany Lions, Locked On Hoosiers get together once a week to talk all things Big Ten Conference. My name is Zach Seyko, host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. Subscribe to our YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest around Penn State and Indiana news. Jacob, it's always great to chat with you. Thanks for the insight, the perspective, the analysis. Can't wait to do it again very soon.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again next week.